Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय 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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So we are reading from Canto 5, chapter 14, verse number 23. Atha cha tasmad ubhayathapi hi karmasmin atmanah samsara vapanam udaharanti. Word to word meanings. Atha, now, cha, and tasmat, because of this, ubhayathapi, both in this life and in the next, he, undoubtedly, karma, fruitive activities, asmin, on this path of sense enjoyment, atmanah, of the living entity, samsara, of material life, avapanam, the cultivation ground or source, udaharanti, the authorities of the Vedas say. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Purport. Not knowing the value of life, karmis create situations whereby they suffer in this life and in the next. Unfortunately, karmis are very attached to material sense gratification, and they cannot appreciate the miserable conditions of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. Therefore, the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Yad karoshi yad ashnasi, yad juhoshi dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva mad arpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you perform, should be done as an offering unto me. The result of one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life, and at the end of Bhagavad Gita, He demands surrender unto Him. People do not generally like this demand, but one who cultivates spiritual knowledge for many births eventually surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate. Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामने गौरतुषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्। हरे कृष्णा। One second. So we were discussing this 14th chapter of the Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, where the discussion was going on between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And this entire chapter was based on the topic Great Forest of Material Enjoyment. So we see one thing that is clear in this purport and the many different aspects, that how here also in this purport it's mentioned that learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity. So we see at different places in the Bhagavatam, people who are engaged in all these activities, engaged in such enjoyment, they are condemned. At many different places of the Bhagavatam, we see this thing is there. People who are engaged either in fruitive activities, not just fruitive activities, other class of transcendentalists, they are also condemned, unless person takes to the pure path of devotional service. So we see, as we say, Bhagavatam, the glories of Bhagavatam, that Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam, that this is a spotless Puran, or this is a very pure Puran, the Puran which talks about the highest truth, which propounds the highest truth. And naturally it condemns all other processes. Like here it condemns the process of fruitive activities, or process of karma yoga, not karma yoga, process of karmis, basically what they follow, what activities they do. Because this Puran or Bhagavad Puran is meant for people, it's described, it's meant, or it's relished by those people who are on the liberated platform. As in the Bhagavatam itself, we know the second verse which says, Dharma projita kaitavo atro parmayo nirmatsaranam satam. That it rejects all the religious principles or all the different ritualistic activities which are all materially motivated. And it propounds the highest truth which is relished by those who are completely free from envy, who are completely on a liberated platform. And that's why we see all in the different aspects of the Bhagavatam, these things are condemned, and all these such activities, all the people who are trying to enjoy in this great forest of material enjoyment, they are all condemned. So here we see the purport. Prabhupada talks about a karmi. That how does the karmi, or what is the goal of a karmi, what all activities he does in his life. So we have discussed this previously, we know all these aspects about a karmi and a karma yogi. That both of them follow the scriptures. Even a person who is a karmi also follows the scriptures, and a person who is a karma yogi also follows the scriptures. But here the difference is, or as we see in this purport also, the goal is different. The karmi just wants to enjoy sense gratification, or his goal is just to get some better pleasures in his life or better destination in his life. There is no aim to connect with the Supreme Lord. He'll do all different activities, but the aim is just to enjoy in this world. How I can get better comforts in the next life. Whereas when it comes to yoga system, any yoga system, the aim is to connect with the Lord. And that's why everyone condemns such process. Even we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also speaks about this. Krishna also condemns this process, and he calls such people avipashyita, or people of less intelligent. So in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, that verse comes, 42nd verse, where he says, Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipashyita. So he speaks about all these kinds of people who are attracted to the so-called flowery language of the Vedas. And he calls them that these people are actually less intelligent, or these people don't have the highest intelligence. And what do you mean by when we say this flowery language of the Vedas? So we all know that Vedas speak about many subject matters. Vedas speak about the four Purusharthas that are there. Vedas speak about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Vedas speak about many things, how a person can enjoy in this world, and how also a person can get out of this world. But then these people, they are mostly attracted to enjoyment in the world, or they are mostly attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas. They are mostly attracted to those aspects which talks about different kinds of enjoyment that are there. As we see even in the Bhagavatam, different places are given, like this a description of the Swargaloka is given. And as we generally people know that there is only one Swargaloka, that is in the higher planetary systems. But Bhagavatam describes about 3 types of Swargaloka. So it describes about Swargaloka in the higher planetary systems, that is definitely there where Indra stays. It also describes about Bhauma Swarga, that even in the Bhuloka that is there, so it has 9 Varshas. And one of the Varsha is this Bharat Varsha. But the remaining 8 Varshas that are there, they are described as Bhauma Swarga. Or even there it's described the facility of enjoyment is much higher, much greater. And many descriptions are there that there are oceans of milk, oceans of different, like we have only seen ocean of salt water. But there are oceans of milk, yogurt, oceans of ghee, an ocean of liquor, and so many other things. So it's described that how different in the Vedas, the point I was trying to make is in Vedas, different descriptions of enjoyment in this world are given. It talks about the heavenly planetary systems. It talks about the Bhauma Swarga, or that is there. It even talks about lower planetary systems, that is called as Bila Swarga. There also so many facilities for enjoyment is there. And as Prabhupada says that those who are too much attached to technology and science, they are placed in those lower planetary systems to enjoy with technology and all those things there. So different aspects of enjoyment are given in the Vedas, and these people who are too much attached to these activities, or too much attached to the flowery language of the Vedas, they are the ones who are condemned. Because their only goal or their only purpose is sense gratification and an opulent life. They are only looking for better enjoyment, how I can enjoy my senses in this life or in the next. And such people, Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, they think that there is nothing more than this, or this is the highest thing that is there. And so they are described as Vedavadarata, means so-called followers of the Vedas, or Prabhupada translates apparent followers or supposed followers of the Vedas. They will also proudly say that I am Sanatani, I am following the Dharma, I am follower of the Vedas, but they'll be just busy, or they'll just be thinking about these aspects. Just thinking about enjoyment, that how I can enjoy better in the next life, how I can get a better birth, how I can go to heavenly planets. This will be their major goal. Even in the so-called language of the Vedas, they'll be searching for these things. And when it comes to the current context, we see that even these people are not there. Or the point I was trying to make is even people who are aspiring for better enjoyment in the next life, now to even people don't have that much patience. People don't even want to wait for next life. They want instant results, or they want results immediately. They'll do any ritual, they'll do anything, and they want immediately some result should come, or something I should get. Immediately I should get some benefit of my activity. And then when they don't get that, whatever activities they are doing, even if they do some so-called rituals, some sacrifices, and they don't get the results, then they start condemning. Then they start condemning the whole process or the Vedas, that they don't work or these things don't work. Because they don't realize that even a dharmic person, enjoyment that is going to comes in the next life, based on whatever punya he acquires, whatever activities he does, based on that he gets enjoyment in the next life. But such people, when they look for enjoyment in this world, or when they look for instant enjoyment, they are baffled in their attempts, or they get frustrated with some time when they don't get the effects. And that's why very nicely it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also said that conceptions, all these conceptions of good and bad activities, or the so-called followers of the Vedas, they may say that this activity is moralistic, this activity is good for us, this activity is not good for us. But all that is just illusion, or all that is just mental speculation. Anything we do in this world, unless and until it helps us to get out of this world, or unless and until it helps us to get to the higher platform, it's all waste of time, or it's all illusion. So this verse come in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Dvaita bhadra abhadra gyan sab manodharma, ei bhala, ei manda, ei sab brahma. Basically, which talks about that in the material world, all such conceptions which are there, or people have all such conceptions, this is a good activity, that is about good activity. But all such conceptions are actually wrong, or all such conceptions are actually incorrect, or it's just an illusion. Because when one forgets the actual position that he's a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, he's meant to serve the Supreme Lord, and he just engages in some material activities and starts distinguishing between material activities, that this activity is good for me, that activity is good for me. Actually, all the activities are only troublesome, and that will only lead to suffering. That's what in the purport Prabhupada mentioned, that such activities, a person who is involved in such activities, that is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. And Krishna further describes in the Gita about such people who are too much attached to these activities. He says, Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya aprita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhau na vidiyate. That such people who are too attached to all these activities, too attached to sense enjoyment, too attached to these opulences, they cannot practice, or the resolute determination to practice devotional service never arises in them. Even though they might feel like that they want to practice some devotional service, they might also come to temples, but that strong determination to practice devotional service never comes. They won't be able to continue much because they are too much attracted to these sense gratification tendencies, or too much attracted to this material opulences. And that's why in those series of verses only Krishna advises Arjuna that rise above these Vedas, or Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistragunya Bhavarjana. That he speaks that Vedas speak about so many things, or mainly speaks about these three modes of material nature, or mainly speaks about activities in three modes. But you try to rise above those modes. And as we all know, Vedas also describe so many activities just for the gradual elevation of different people who are there, or the gradual elevation from a person who is adharmic, so that at least he follows some part of the Vedas and he gets elevated to some extent. But then that is not the highest goal of the Vedas, or that is not the highest purpose of the Vedas. As in the purport, Prabhupada also explains that only when this chapter is finished, or the chapter of Karma Kanda in his life is finished, then he can think about the higher aspects. Because unless a person is busily engaged in all these sense gratification tendencies, or all these materialistic activities, it's very, very difficult for him to take to devotional service, or take to the practice of pure devotional service. And we see in Bhagavatam also a similar pastime comes of Prachini Bharishat, who was also completely engaged in fruitive activities, or who also had this tendency to engage in different ritualistic activities. So we know that pastime where Prachetas, he ordered his sons that they should get married, and they left the place. They went for practicing austerities. They were practicing austerities for 10,000 years. They were worshipping the songs that were given to them by Lord Shiva. They were practicing devotional service. But here Prachini Bharishat was busy engaged in fruitive activities, busy engaged in different sacrifices, different activities just for elevation, or just for a better result. And it's described that Narad Muni comes to that place, or Narad Muni sees him engaged in all these activities, and he develops a compassion for him. Or he develops compassion for such person because he understood that this person is just badly stuck in this world. Because great souls or great personalities, they are always looking for a chance how to elevate the person to the next level, or how to give him the highest benefit that is there. And that's why when Prachini Parishat was engaged in all those activities, Narad Muni comes to that place, he develops compassion and he gives him instructions, or he gives him the highest knowledge that is there. Because he understood this person is badly stuck in all these activities, is badly stuck in fruitive activities. He might get a better result, but ultimately he will be stuck in all these activities. And that's why, as we all know in the past time, Narad Muni gives him the teachings, or gives him the highest knowledge that is there. The rarest of the rare knowledge we speak about. And this is also very amazing to analyze that how this knowledge is actually very, very rare to get. Or how the knowledge of devotional service we have, or how the different activities we do, it's a rarest benediction that anyone can get. So this also comes in the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami. How he speaks about that, how it is very, very rare for a person to get this seed of devotional service. He speaks about the different living entities that are there, that how we know 8,400,000 species are there. And then many, many innumerable infinite living entities are there. And there also this description comes how there one are the stavara, or the ones who cannot move. The living entities who are like the trees and other insect and trees and other plants who cannot move. And then the description of the jangam, or the living entities who can move. And then further they are classified that among the moving living entities also there are birds, there are aquatics, there are different animals, there are different insects. And then there it is said that very, very few are the human species. Of course, it's very difficult to comprehend. We might feel so many humans are there, how that is very, very few. But then out of all the living entities, it's described that very, very few are the ones who are human species, or the human beings that are there. And even among the human beings, then the description comes that how there are so many uncivilized human beings, uncultured human beings, like there are the Mlechas, there are the Yavanas, Pulindas, so many human beings who do not have any knowledge of the Vedic Dharma, who do not have any knowledge of any kind of regulative principles or religious principles, and basically engaged in just sense gratification. Basically those who are engaged in the adharmic form of life. Like recently we were seeing that video of people, like how those children were being taught how to cut the cows and and the females were being taught how to cook the cows, how to cook those flesh and all those things. So basically completely adharmic form of life they are living, which are not at all civilized. They are not at all civilized. And then out of all of them, very few are the ones who are civilized, who are actually followers, or who actually come in this Vedic manifold that is there. And there are also very interesting things. Even Mahaprabhu says like that in his teachings, that 50% of those people, or half of those, are just the ones who just give lip service to the Vedas. Or they'll speak about regulative principles, they'll speak about all these things, but they won't follow all these things. They'll be very proud that I also wear a kanthimala, I also wear a tilak, but they'll be engaged in all the sinful activities, not following any regulative principles. So they are the ones so-called followers of the Vedas, or ones who do lip service to the Vedas. So then the very few that are left, they are the ones who actually follow some part of the Vedas. And in that also there is categories that are given. The first category he gives is the karma nishthas ones. The ones we are discussing here, the ones who follow all the fruitive activities and aspire for a better result. That they want some pious results for that activities. But then they are not the highest, or they are not the ones who are at the topmost level. So there is this very amazing shloka which says that koti karma nishtha madhye ek jnani shreshta. That there he speaks that out of all those, first of all we have classified to a very less extent, that we are talking of a very less amount of population that is there, or the ones who are civilized and who are actually following the Vedic principles. And even among all that, even among all the so many karmis or the karma nishthas that are there, very, very few are the ones who actually aspire for something higher, who actually get frustrated with all these fruitive activities, get frustrated with all these different things that they do for getting better results, and they aspire for liberation. They aspire for getting out of this world, that how we can do something or merge in the Supreme Lord, merge in the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. And it's described that out of all the so many karmis, those who aspire for liberation, they are the ones who are better. And then further classification is given that koti jnani madhye haya ek jana mukta. That out of so many jnanis, or so many millions of people who are there, or so many people who are aspiring for liberation, even among them, hardly anyone is able to achieve the ultimate goal. Or hardly anyone is able to achieve the goal of becoming liberated, becoming mukta. And furthermore, the classification is there given, that is Koti Mukta Madhya Dullabha Ek Krishna Bhakta. That even out of all these millions of liberated person, so already we have classified among the millions, very few we have reduced. And out of all the few that are left who are actually practicing the things properly, who become liberated, out of them a pure devotee of Lord Krishna is very, very difficult to find, or very, very rare that is there. And that is what the point I was trying to make, the rarity of this devotional service, or rarity of this different aspects of devotional service that is there. This is what a person is able to get after many, many lifetimes. As in this verse also it's given, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate. That after many, many lifetimes, a person, a Jnani who is cultivating knowledge, is able to surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And when is that happens, or when that happens? When a pure devotee showers his compassion, or when he gets in touch with some devotee of the Lord. Here we see the example of Narad Muni, who showers his compassion on Prachini Barishat. And he says, he asks the king, when he meets the king, he asks him that, what is the purpose of you doing all these activities? So Narad Muni sees that Prachini Barishat is busy performing all the fruitive activities, busy performing all the sacrifices. And Narad Muni asks him that why you are doing all these activities. Because the ultimate goal of all the activities is the person can get rid of all miseries and can get all happiness. But that you are not going to achieve through all these activities. Whatever you do in this world, whatever activities you do in this world, you cannot get free from the results, or free from the past karma that is there. Or suffering will anyways be there. You cannot get rid of all miseries that are there. And Prabhupada describes it as that the karma bandha fast that is there, or the entanglement of fruitive activities that is there. A person, no matter whatever he does or whatever sacrifices he performed, he will still be stuck in this karma bandha fast, or he will still be stuck in this entanglement of fruitive activities. Like Prabhupada gives the example of the Western countries. That time he gives in that perspective that how they have all the things, they have practiced different fruitive activities, rituals, they have got a Janma, Aishwarya, Shrutastri, they have got Shrutastri, they have got all the things, all the facilities that are there. They have got a better birth, they have got nice education, nice facilities, but still they are distressed, still they are not very happy. Because ultimately a person is stuck in this cycle. A person is stuck in this cycle of fruitive activities, or stuck in this cycle to enjoy in this world. And ultimately the goal is that he wants to get rid of these sufferings. But that is what Narad Muni speaks to Prachini Barisha, that whatever you do, through this method you cannot get rid of the miseries of this world, or the miseries will always be there. No doubt there will be happiness when you perform all these activities, but they will be accompanied by miseries. Or miseries will also be there simultaneously. And as we see in this purport also, Prabhupada mentioned that why people want to enjoy this world. So he speaks, unfortunately, karmis are very much attached to material sense gratification. And they cannot appreciate the miserable conditions of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. So this is the basic reason, because people are so much attached that even though they see there are so many sufferings, there are so many problems coming their way, but still they keep on trying their best. Still they keep on trying to get rid of the miseries, get free from the distress as much as possible, and endeavor to get some happiness that is there. And that's what we were hearing yesterday also. Prabhupada was sharing that how people are ready to do anything. They are ready to do beg, borrow, steal, anything just to get some enjoyment, just to get some money. And a very nice logic where Prabhupada gave yesterday, he was speaking in the class, that why people want to gather money, or why people want enjoyment in this world. Ultimately, they think they'll get more and more money, they'll gather more and more money so that they can get enjoyment. Of course, now when it comes to young people, they might think like that. And Prabhupada was giving the example of old people. They are on the verge of death, they are about to die, still they are so much attached to all these things, still they are so much attached to money. And there is no logic for that. You ask them that, do you believe in next life? Do you believe in transmigration of the soul? And they'll say they don't believe. Then what are you accumulating this money for? Or what will you do this money? What will you do with this money? And Prabhupada was nicely explaining, they might give various logics that I'm saving this from my grandson, for my sons. But then when they don't believe in transmigration of the soul, when they think that this body is just made of some chemical elements, then who are they reserving this money for, or who are they saving this money for? There's no logic access for them to accumulate money. And that is what he says, that he was explaining yesterday very nicely that how even when it comes to different ashramas that are there, when it comes to grahastha ashram, so they can be allowed to some extent to accumulate money, to reserve money for some extent. But when it comes to all the other three ashramas, they are expected not to accumulate any money at all, or not to at all worry about their maintenance. Because there is no point as such, or there is no logic as such for them to accumulate money. Like he gives the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, like one of the pastimes where his servant Govinda. Although we know his servant was for his pleasure, he saved or he stocked that haritaki that was there just to give it to him for his pleasure so that the Lord will get pleased. But the Lord chastised him just to set an example. Lord chastised him and said that why are you stocking this for the next day, or you should not stock or accumulate anything, even for the next day. This is the highest standard which Prabhupada writes or Prabhupada expects, that the person should not stock even for the next day. What to speak of stocking at the time of death for their sons and grandsons. And we see many such pastimes, even the pastime of Narad Muni and the Megari that was there. When Narad Muni meets him, when Narad Muni gave him the teachings, elevated the Megari, and the Megari was busy engaged in devotional service. And that time when Narad Muni meets him, and Narad Muni asked him a question, Narad Muni asked to the hunter that, what is your income for maintenance? Or how you are maintaining yourself? And that time also that hunter, that Megari replied that whatever you are sending me, that is enough for my maintenance, or that is sufficient. Because the hunter was thinking that Narad Muni is sending me the grain, so Narad Muni is the one who is providing. And there also he says a very amazing statement, that hunter says that please do not send me so much grains. Or there are more, I do not need so many grains, just send me little bit as much as necessary for my single day. Or just send me that much which is sufficient for two people, basically for him and his wife. I do not need so many grains. And Narad Muni was very, very pleased to hear that. And Narad Muni approved that this person is completely dependent. He has faith that Lord will supply him. He's not thinking that I'll stock something. Maybe if Narad Muni goes away, who will send these stocks for me? Who will send these grains for me? He had complete faith that the Lord will provide for his maintenance. And there in the purport also, Prabhupada makes a very, very heavy statement. Prabhupada makes this. Especially he says for the renunciants that it is not necessary for a Vaishnava to keep a stock of food for the next day. He should receive only sufficient grains to last one day. The next day he must again depend on the Lord's mercy. This is the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should be convinced that the Lord will provide daily. There is no need to stock food for the next day. This is what Prabhupada writes in that purport. So I don't know how this can be practically implemented, but this is the high level expectation which Prabhupada sets, that how a person should be completely dependent on the Lord or not concerned about. And he gives many examples. Like he gives the example of birds, that how when grains are thrown to the birds, they collect as much as is required. They do not care that I want to stock for the next day, I want to save something for the next day. Whatever is required, they collect and they go away. And similarly, when Lord has given us this body, He will provide whatever is necessary. He will give whatever is necessary for us to eat. And that's why he speaks that, yesterday's class also we were speaking the real philosophy, that is Yavad Artha Prayojanam. That whatever is necessary for a devotee, whatever is material necessities that are there, he should accept, and he should not artificially increase the necessities. As minimal as required for the bodily maintenance, he should accept and not strive for any artificial necessities. And he gives many examples. He gives the example of these birds. He also gives the example of different acharyas, like the example of the Goswamis, like how Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, when they were in Vrindavan, they used to constantly go door to door, beg from door to door, whatever alms, and they never stocked for their maintenance. They never stocked for the next day also. They never cared who will provide the next day. Even though previously we know there were great ministers in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah, they were earning so much great amount. But yet when they left everything, when they accept that renounced ashram, they were completely dependent on the Lord, or completely dependent that the Lord will provide. And Prabhupada was giving his own example also. Prabhupada gives his own example that how he was also alone for many years. How when he left his home, he had no source of income. He was alone when he was in Vrindavan, when he was struggling. And even when he went to the West, he was alone. No one was there with him. But still the Lord provided whatever was necessary. Hardly, or there was no such day where he had to starve or where food was not provided. Somewhere or the other, Lord provided, and he had sufficient every day to eat. And that's what Prabhupada speaks about, that is what the devotee's light should be. That as much as is required, the devotee should accept, but should not endeavor for artificially increasing the necessities. Or artificial necessities should be avoided as much as possible. And that is what this speaks about, many different examples. And this is the same thing which even Narad Muni speaks to Prachini Parishad. Narad Muni speaks about the different aspects. And then finally, hearing the aspects of devotional service. As we know, Narad Muni speaks that allegorical story of Puranjana. And then Prachini Parishad was not able to understand the purport. Then he explains him the purport. And finally tells him that I am speaking about you only and no one else. And actually, I was hearing one lecture that it is spoken about all of us also. It's not just about Prachini Parishad. So finally, Narad Muni gives all those teachings to Prachini Parishad. And then Prachini Parishad finally leaves his kingdom. Though initially he was unwilling to leave his kingdom. Finally, he gives the order that when my sons return, they will be put in charge of the kingdom, and he leaves the kingdom for practicing devotional service. So there also we see this thing was condemned, the activity of fruitive activities or the different engagement in fruitive activities were condemned. And then Narad Muni gives him the highest platform, the highest teachings that are there. And there in this purport also Prabhupada described that therefore the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So finally, this is the goal of life, or this is the ultimate purpose of even the Vedas. Even though Vedas may describe so many things, Vedas may describe about different fruitive activities, different ritualistic activities, and so many other things that may be there to gradually elevate a person. But the ultimate goal is to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we know what to speak about others, even the person who wrote the Vedas. Vedvyas himself was dissatisfied after writing the Vedas. We know that pastime where he wrote all the Vedas, he wrote all the Puranas. And after writing everything, he was dissatisfied in his own mind. And he was not able to understand the purpose of his or the reason of his dissatisfaction. Even though he had given all the scriptures, written all the things which were meant for the welfare of the entire world. Still he was feeling hollow within, still he was not feeling satisfied. And there also Narad Muni comes to the spot and tells him the reason of his dissatisfaction. Tells him first, Narad Muni glorifies Vedvyas that you have done such a nice thing, you have written such amazing scholarly scriptures and so many things you have given. And first Narad Muni asks him that you tell me why you are feeling dissatisfied. And Vedvyas was confused. Vedvyas says, I do not know, you only tell me what is the reason for my dissatisfaction, since you know everything. And there also Narad Muni writes the same thing or describes the same thing, that you have written so many things. You have written about different activities, different religious rituals. But because you have not sufficiently and repeatedly glorified the Lord, so you are dissatisfied. So you are not still feeling content. And there also he condemns the different path of self-realization. He says that even though you have written about self-realization also, the Vedvyas says that he has written in the Upanishads, he writes about self-realization. But then he says that you have not sufficiently glorified about the Supreme Lord, or you have not repeatedly written about the glories of the Supreme Lord. And he also speaks, Nashkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam. That even though you have written about self-realization, but that also is devoid of the describing the glories or the pastimes of Supreme Lord. Achyuta bhava varjitam. You may have written different activities about fruitive activities. You may have written about the Jnana Yoga process also. But you have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord. And that is why you are dissatisfied. You are not feeling satisfied. And in that aspect of this, in that section of the Bhagavatam also we see that how Narad Muni condemns all those things. Narad Muni condemns all those fruitive activities that people in this world, they are naturally inclined to enjoy. Naturally, everyone in this world wants to enjoy, and you have given this, or you have encouraged them in that way. Because now they can enjoy through the process or through the legal way of following the Vedic scriptures. Because ultimately no one wants to speak about getting out, or no one wants to achieve the higher platforms. And since you have also justified by giving all these techniques or all these different activities of enjoying in this world, they will naturally accept these activities in the name of religion, and they will hardly care for any prohibitions. So there also Narad Muni condemns all these activities or condemns all these descriptions that were given by Vedvyas, saying that you have naturally encouraged people for such kind of materialistic enjoyment and you have not given them the highest benefit that is there. And that's where that famous shloka, Narad Muni speaks that shloka, Tasyeva heta prayateta kovida, na labhyate yad brahmatam upare ada, tal labhyate dukkhavad anyata sukham, kalena sarvitra gabhira ramhasa. So he speaks about that people who are intelligent or people who are actually worthy or actually have that spiritual intelligence, they should endeavor for the highest goal. Because all this happiness and the distress that is there in the world, that will anyways going to come. Based on our karma, based on our destinies, all these things, just like distress automatically comes, a person does not endeavor for distress, even happiness will automatically come. And just to encourage people in all these things is not a big thing. You have not done a big thing by that. Because this will anyways come. And people who are actually intelligent, they should endeavor for the highest goal or they should endeavor for the highest end that is there. And they should not worry about or they should not be focused on going around in these planetary systems or getting enjoyment in the higher planetary systems that is there. They should actually endeavor for the highest goal or to attain the favor of the Supreme Lord. That is what is given in this words, that they should endeavor for ultimately attaining the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that discussion between Narad Muni and Vyasdev, one more amazing point that was discussed is like someone may ask, okay, we are condemning the karmis. We are condemning the karmis or the people who are engaged in fruitive activities. But then what about devotees? Sometimes we see that devotees also engage in such fruitive activities and devotees also fall down from their path. So there a very amazing explanation in that discussion. Narad Muni explains that it's possible that karmi also falls down from his path, and devotee also falls down. So due to some reasons, devotee may also fall down from his path. But then there is a huge difference between the two. A karmi, when he falls down from his path, he is just suffering the reactions of his past fruitive activities. He is just suffering what is in the past or what the sins he has done in the past, he will have to suffer the reactions. But that is not at all equivalent to a fall down of a karmi, fall down of a devotee. Prabhupada explains in the purport that devotee may also fall down, or neophyte devotee may also, due to lack of enthusiasm or lack of knowledge, may also deviate from the path. But he gives the example of an orphan and a son of a king. Now both may have sufferings in their life. An orphan may also go through different sufferings and a son of a king may also go through sufferings. But then both of them are different. The orphan has no caretaker or there is no one to protect him. But the son of a king always has the king who is very, very vigilant to take care of that son. Or who is very, very vigilant to take care of the needs of the son. And similarly, a devotee, a karmi is like that orphan. He will fall down due to his own past activities and there will be no one to take care of him. But when it comes to a devotee, the Lord will be personally involved. The Lord will give some karma and even the Lord gives some chastisement that will be for the betterment of the devotee, so that a devotee can further come in touch with the Lord of somehow or the other advance in his devotional practice. And that is why the difference, even the fall down of a devotee is different from the fall down of a karmi. They can never be compared. As we all know, even the devotee is not able to complete his practice in this life. Naturally, in the next life, he'll get that opportunity. And there also, if some problems come in his life or some miseries come in his life, that is also a mercy of the Supreme Lord, just so that the devotee can advance more and more in his practice. So there also it's explained that fruitive activities anyways condemned, because such persons will just keep on rotating in this world. Whereas even a person who practices little devotional service, as we speak in the Bhagavad Gita also, Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhyat, that can give it the highest benediction or the highest benefit that is there. And that is what is described in that discussion also. So here finally Prabhupada says that a person should utilize all his activities to attain the favor of Supreme Personality. And the result of all one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in the Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he demands surrender unto him. So that is the final aspect, or that is what the Jnanis, after many, many lifetimes, they come to this aspect of surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. But we see ultimately whatever a person does materially, whatever activities he is performing materially, that anyways he cannot change. Whatever suffering has to come, whatever things have to come, happiness also has to come, that will come up by its own course. And so the only endeavor for all the persons, or only endeavor for us, should be how we can advance in devotional service. And also another aspect that is mentioned here is how we can fully surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be the only endeavor, because other things will automatically come with time. And when we speak about this surrender, as Bhakti Vinod Thakur in his amazing prayers he writes, that Shadanga Sharnagati Hoibe Jahar, Tara Pratna Sune Nand Kumar. That one who has actually surrendered to the Supreme Lord in these sixfold principles that are there of surrender, Lord listens to the prayers of those personality. Or when a person fully surrenders to the Supreme Lord, or fully follows all the limbs of Sharnagati, then his prayers are fully answered. And that is what here in this purport is mentioned, that ultimately our only endeavor should be how to surrender to the Supreme Lord and how to practice devotional service following the six limbs of surrender that are there. So, in the last line that is mentioned is, another thing that is mentioned is, people do not generally like this demand, but one who cultivates spiritual knowledge for many births eventually surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord. That people may not like all these things. Many times people challenge that why is the Lord demanding this surrender, or why Krishna is saying to surrender unto me. But ultimately, after so many lifetimes, person has to come to that platform, or ultimately when they get the association of devotees, they come to the platform of practicing devotional service or surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord. So this should be our endeavor, that how we can also follow all these six limbs of devotional service, six limbs of surrender, and then advance in devotional life. So with this, I would like to pause here. Any questions or comments?
Such a nice systematic and class. So in the starting of the class, just mentioned that the Swargaloka about that heavenly planets. Those are in the upper planet system, in the middle planet system, and also in the below Swargaloka. So it was that 9 Varshas are there in the middle planet systems. Other 8 are heavenly. Why not Earth with them?
Why not?
All the other 8 which are there, other 8 Varshas in the Purloka are also heavenly. Why not Earth, Bharatvarsha? Any reasons?
Why not Bharat? Because this is a place meant for a different purpose. This is a place meant for austerities, as we say. That this is a tapo bhumi, where people can come and practice austerities and generate or actually go back to the supreme abode. As we say that in other planetary systems, karma is not generated. Those are just meant for enjoyment. When a person has a sufficient stock of punya, he goes in those planetary systems and he can enjoy nicely. But this is a place where a person can actually break free from the cycle of birth and death. So this place is meant for that higher purpose. And that's why we say that even demigods aspire for coming to taking birth in this Bharat Varsha, so that they can attain the highest goal of human life. So that is what I can think of.
One more question. So as mentioned that only of fully surrendered souls, a prayer the Lord hears. So the whole confusion is either Paramatma is there, we hear that everyone's desires must be fulfilled. So why it's mentioned only of fully surrendered souls, prayer the Lord hears.
So even in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that shloka ye yatham mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyam. That based on the level of surrender of the person, that much he can be in touch with the Supreme Lord, or that much the Lord reciprocates. So here in that bhajan also, what Bhakti Vinod Thakur says is that a person who fully surrenders with these sixfold limbs, then his prayers are answered, or Lord, he's in personal touch with the Lord, or he is in direct touch with the Paramatma who is there. And based on how much we have surrendered to the Lord, that much we can see the reciprocation. So this is what my understanding is, but Prabhuji can answer.
I am also thinking, so maybe it's more of material and spiritual desires. Material desires, Paramatma is sanctioned, but that is based on karma. So if the person has that karma credits, then Paramatma can sanction. Otherwise, he doesn't sanction. But even when a person is not having enough karma credits but still is offering a prayer, but obviously is not for sense gratification but for elevation of Krishna consciousness. So that surrendered soul's prayer, Lord might hear, is what I'm speaking as analyzing. You want to add?
This is question about surrender soul's prayers, right? So the question is, if person is not surrendered, how his prayers are?
No. So normally people desire even materialist. So Paramatma sanctions. So here it is said that a surrendered soul's prayer only Lord listens. But there also is listening. So what's the difference?
Actually, we asked this question to Vaibhav. That time, we were telling that even non-surrendered souls are praying and their prayers are sanctioned. So they are not based on that. Personally, Krishna is not intervening. Their prayers are coming, and as you said, based on their karma credits, they are sanctioned. If karma credit is not there, they are made to work for the karma for the to attend that piety, and then their activities that they are actually. So somehow Krishna will make it their desires, their materialistic desire, to be fulfilled through this way. But personally, Krishna will not intervene. System is there, which is also ultimately designed by Krishna. So ultimately supplied by Krishna, but not by.
Very nice. One compliment is very nicely you structure your classes. And just going to the point of how you're speaking. It's very nice. How you connected the fall down of a karmi and a devotee. That was very nice. I liked the way it went. Thank you.
Thank you. All by your blessings.
We need to each and every statement and then elaborate on that.
That is
Step by
style
step.
of speaking. That's nice.
ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की।